Universal Center for Renovation presents Historical and Biblical Israelites. This video is strictly for educational purposes and commentary. This video is of biblical and secular historical literature. So, enjoy. Aaron, the Levite, the high priest of Israel, the brother of Moses, and his $60 million garments. It has been estimated that the garments worn by Aaron, the high priest, were valued at over $60 million, 60 million US dollars. This valuation reflects not only the wealth that the children of Israel had acquired during the Exodus from Egypt, but also their emerging identity as a people positioned for global leadership, trade, and commerce. With a growing focus on economic influence and cultural prestige. The modern monetary valuation of Aaron's garments is a symbolic estimate based on the materials described in the book of Exodus. The gold, precious stones, fine linen, and skilled craftsmanship. While it highlights the extraordinary wealth and significance of the priesthood, the biblical texts emphasize holiness and divine service. The extraordinary wealth reflected in the high priest's garments symbolized divine favor and blessings, acknowledging that the God of Israel, Yahweh, was dwelling among his people. If we take a closer look at the sacred furnishings associated with the priesthood of Aaron within the tabernacle in the wilderness, we observe that no expense was spared in the worship of the Lord, Yahweh. Every object was crafted with intentional beauty, costly materials, and divine precision, underscoring the holiness of the God of Israel, Yahweh, and the seriousness of approaching his presence. We begin with the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred object in Israel's worship, and the focal point of the tabernacle. Wikipedia. Ark of the Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant, also known as the Ark of the Testimony or the Ark of God, was a religious storage chest and relic held to be the most sacred object by the Israelites. Religious traditions describes it as a wooden storage chest decorated in solid gold, accompanied by an ornamental lid known as the Seat of Mercy. According to the book of Exodus and the first book of Kings in the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament, the ark contained the tablets of the law by which God delivered the 10 Commandments to Moses at Mount Sinai. According to the book of Exodus, the book of Numbers, and the epistle to the Hebrews in the New Testament, it also contained Aaron's rod and a pot of manna. The biblical account relates that approximately 1 year After the Israelites' exodus from Egypt, the ark was created according to the pattern that God gave to Moses. The Ark of the Covenant represented the very throne of God among his people, constructed of acacia wood and overlaid with pure gold, both inside and out. It housed the tablets of the law, later accompanied by Aaron's rod and the jar of manna. The mercy seat, fashioned from a single piece of pure gold and crowned with 2 cherubims. Its extraordinary craftsmanship and costly material were not expressions of human extravagance, but visible declarations that the God of Israel was worthy of the finest offering his people could bring. The Ark of the Covenant housed the tablets of the law. It also contained Aaron's rod that budded and a jar of manna. Aaron's rod that budded served as a divine sign of God's chosen priesthood. Once a lifeless staff, it miraculously brought forth buds, blossoms, and ripe almonds, demonstrating that priestly authority was established not by human ambition or lineage alone, but by God's sovereign election and life-giving power. The Book of Numbers, chapter 17. A jar of manna was preserved as a testimony to God's daily provision, as the bread from heaven that nourished Israel in the 40 years in the wilderness. The Book of Exodus, chapter 16. The jar of manna kept inside the Ark of the Covenant. It stood as a perpetual witness to divine provision in the 40 years that the Israelites, the children of Israel, spent in the wilderness. Also inside the ark was the tablets of the law, the written testimony of God's covenant with the children of Israel, inscribed by the very finger of God. The tablets represented his righteousness, his righteous standards, moral order, and it revealed his will. Placed within the ark, the law stood at the heart of Israel's worship, affirming that God's presence was among his people. The mercy seat and the cherubim formed the sacred covering of the Ark of the Covenant and represented the meeting place between God and Israel. Fashioned from a single piece of pure gold, the mercy seat served as the place of atonement, where sacrificial blood was sprinkled on the Day of Atonement. The cherubim, or angels, facing one another with outstretched wings, overshadowing the mercy seat. From between them, the Lord declared that he would dwell among his people and speak to them. Number 1, the Ark of the Covenant. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 10 to 22. The materials: acacia wood chest, completely overlaid inside and out with solid gold molding, 4 solid gold rings, gold poles, mercy seat, atonement cover, 1 piece of solid gold, 2 large gold cherubim, hammered from the same piece. Extreme valuation: gold content. Ark plus mercy seat plus cherubim, 300 to 400 pounds of gold. Raw gold value: 15 to 25 million. Artistic sculpturing and religious artifact premium: 25 to 50 million. Ark total extreme value: 40 to 75 million US dollars. The golden table of showbread held 12 loaves that were set before the presence of the Lord continually. This bread was not left for God to consume, but to represent the 12 tribes of Israel continually before him. While some religious traditions, such as Vodun, practice the ritual of leaving food for spirits of the dead, the biblical purpose of the showbread is fundamentally different. In Israel's worship, the bread did not nourish God, nor invite spirits. Rather, it symbolized God's sustaining presence and his ongoing relationship with his people, Israel. The Lord explicitly rejects the notion that he depends on human offerings for sustenance. The book of Psalms, chapter 50, verse 12 to 13. Wikipedia: showbread. Laham ha panayim, literally bread of the faces. In the King James Version, showbread, in a biblical or Jewish context, refers to the cakes or loaves of bread, which were always present on a specially dedicated table in the temple in Jerusalem as an offering to God. An alternative and more appropriate translation will be the presence of bread, since the Bible requires that the bread be constantly in the presence of God. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 30. The 12 loaves were ritually consumed in the presence of God each week by the Aaronic priesthood. The book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 9. The golden table of showbread stood in the holy place and held 12 loaves of bread, representing the 12 tribes of Israel, continually before the presence of the Lord, crafted of acacia wood and overlaid with pure gold. The bread was set before the Lord each Sabbath. The priest later consumed the bread in a holy place. There were different models and artistic reconstructions of the golden table of showbread, reflecting variations in interpretation of the biblical description. The Bible describes the table and its 12 loaves, but it does not specify the exact arrangement of the bread. As a result, scholars and artists have created various models based on the book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 23 to 30, and the book of Leviticus, chapter 24, verse 5 to 9. Stacked or layered models. A few artistic depictions show the loaves slightly stacked or in multiple layers. The golden table of showbread was made of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold. Number 2. Table of the bread of the presence. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 23 to 30. The materials: acacia wood, fully overlaid with gold. Gold utensils, dishes, bowls, pitchers. Extreme valuation: gold plus craftsmanship, 5 to 10 million. The menorah stood in the holy place opposite the table of showbread and was crafted entirely of pure gold. It had 7 branches, 3 on each side, and 1 central shaft. Wikipedia. Temple menorah. The temple menorah. It's a 7-branched candelabrum that is described in the Hebrew Bible and later ancient sources as having been used in the tabernacle and the temple in Jerusalem. Since ancient times, it has served as a symbol representing the Jews and Judaism in both the land of Israel and the Jewish diaspora. It became the state of Israel's official emblem when it was founded in the year 1948. According to the Hebrew Bible, the menorah was made out of pure gold and the only source of fuel that was allowed to be used to light the lamps or fresh olive oil. The menorah was placed in the tabernacle. Biblical tradition holds that Solomon's temple was home to 10 menorahs, which were later plundered by the Babylonians. The second temple is also said to have been home to a menorah. Following the Roman destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in the year 70 CE, the menorah was taken to Rome. The Ark of Titus, which still stands, depicts the menorah being carried away by the triumphant Romans, along with other spoils of the destroyed temple. The menorah stood in the holy place opposite the table of showbread and was crafted entirely of pure gold. It was rather tall, designed to be prominent and visible. Its lamps burned continually, providing practical light for the priest. The intricate design included cups, buds, and flowers shaped like almond blossoms. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 31 to verse 40. Number 3, golden lampstand. The menorah. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 31 to 40. The materials: one piece of pure hammered solid gold, shaft, branches, cups, knobs, flowers, lamp and wick trimmers, also gold. Weight: Jewish tradition often estimates 1 talent of gold, 75 pounds. Extreme valuation: raw gold, 4 to 5 million. Master goldsmith craftsmanship, medium level, 10 to 20 million. Menorah, the total, 15 to 25 million. The altar of incense stood in the holy place, directly before the veil that separated the holy place from the Holy of Holies, facing the Ark of the Covenant. It was made of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold, like the table of showbread, and it was relatively small compared to the other furnishings, but its role was profound. Every morning and evening, the priest burned fragrant incense on the altar, a ritual commanded by God. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 1 to verse 10. Wikipedia. Incense offering. The incense offering in Judaism was related to perfumed offerings on the altar of incense in the time of the tabernacle and the first and second temple period, and was an important component of priestly liturgy in the temple in Jerusalem. In the Hebrew Bible, the sacred incense prescribed for use in the wilderness tabernacle was made of costly materials that the congregation contributed. The altar of incense stood in the holy place, directly before the veil, separating the holy place from the Holy of Holies, facing the Ark of the Covenant. Made of acacia wood, overlaid with pure gold, it was smaller than the other furnishings. Each morning and evening, the priest burned fragrant incense on the altar as commanded by God. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 1 to verse 10. Number 4, altar of incense. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 1 to verse 10. The materials: acacia wood, overlaid with gold, gold horns, molding, rings, extreme valuation, 3 to 6 million. In the holy place, the priests were commanded to burn fragrant incense on the altar of incense every morning and evening. the book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 7 and 8. Only Levite priests could perform this sacred service. The altar of burnt offerings stood in the courtyard of the tabernacle, making it the first piece of sacred furniture the Israelites would encounter upon entering the tabernacle complex. It was made of acacia wood, overlaid with bronze, and its height and size was substantial. Designed to hold the various sacrificial animals and used for atonement and worship. The book of Exodus, chapter 27, verse 1 to 8. This altar was the central place for sacrificial worship, where burnt offerings, sin offerings, and fellowship offerings were presented to the Lord. It was made of acacia wood, overlaid with bronze, a bronze grate inside for the fire and ashes. Its function? To receive animal sacrifices. Wikipedia. Altar. Bible. Altars. A place of slaughter or sacrifice. After the theophany on biblical Mount Sinai, in the tabernacle, and afterwards in the temple in Jerusalem, only two altars are mentioned: the altar of burnt offering and the altar of incense. Wikipedia. Altar. Bible. The altar of burnt offering. The first altar was the altar of burnt offering. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 28. Also called the brazen altar. The book of Exodus, chapter 39, verse 39. This was the outdoor altar and stood in the court of the priest, between the temple and the court of Israel, and upon which the animal and bird sacrifices were offered. A priest officiating at a burnt offering would vest in his priestly vestments before approaching the altar. According to the Bible, the fire on the altar was lit directly by the hand of God and was not permitted to go out. The book of Leviticus, chapter 6, verse 12 to 13. No strange fire could be placed upon the altar. The burnt offerings would remain on the altar throughout the night before they could be removed. The book of Leviticus, chapter 6, verse 9. Wikipedia. Altar. Bible. In the tabernacle. The first altar of this type was made to be moved with the children of Israel as they wandered through the wilderness. The Kohathites, who were a particular family of Levites, who were responsible for moving and setting up the altar. The altar of burnt offerings was located in the courtyard of the tabernacle, making it the first piece of sacred furniture that the Israelites encountered. It was square, made of acacia wood, overlaid with bronze, with a height of 5 cubits, about 7.5 feet, and a length and width of 5 cubits. The book of Exodus, chapter 27, verse 1 to verse 8. Each of the 4 corners featured horns. The altar served as the central place for sacrificial worship, including burnt offerings, sin offerings, and fellowship offerings. God commanded that the fire of the altar of burnt offerings burn continually, never going out. The book of Leviticus, chapter 6, verse 13. This fire was kept alight by the priest day and night, and was the center of sacrificial worship in the tabernacle courtyard. The priests were responsible for maintaining the fire, adding wood as needed, and ensuring that it was never go out. Number 5, bronze altar, burnt offering altar. The book of Exodus, chapter 27. The materials: acacia wood, overlaid with bronze grating, utensils, pans, forks, extreme valuation. Bronze is inexpensive, but scale plus craftsmanship, 1 to 3 million. In the tabernacle, it was the Levites, specifically the priests from Aaron's family, who were responsible for offering sacrifices on behalf of the people of Israel. The book of Leviticus, chapter 1 through 9. These offerings included burnt offerings, sin offerings, guilt offerings, and fellowship offerings, all carried out according to God's precise instructions. In the tabernacle, it was the Levites, specifically the priests from Aaron's family, who were responsible for offering sacrifices on behalf of the people of Israel. The book of Leviticus, chapter 1 through chapter 9. These offerings included burnt offerings, sin offerings, guilt offerings, and fellowship offerings, all carried out according to God's precise instructions. The brazen laver was a large basin placed between the altar of burnt offerings and the entrance to the holy place of the tabernacle. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 17 to verse 21. It was made of bronze, derived from the mirrors of the women who served at the entrance of the tent of meeting. The book of Exodus, chapter 38, verse 8. The laver was used by the priests for ritual washing before they approached the tabernacle or handled the sacred offerings. The brazen laver was a large bronze basin filled with the water. Priests washed their hands and feet in the water, ensuring they were ritually clean before handling the sacrifices or entering the holy place. And thou shalt also make a laver of copper, and the base thereof of copper, whereat to wash, and thou shalt put it between the tent of meeting and the altar, and thou shalt put water therein. The brazen laver. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 17 to verse 21. Wikipedia. Bronze laver. The instructions given to Moses in the book of Exodus included the creation of a bronze laver to be sited outside the tabernacle of meeting, between the tabernacle door and the altar of burnt offering, for Aaron, his sons, and their successors as priests to wash their hands and their feet before making a sacrifice. Both the laver and its base were to be made of bronze. Number 6. Bronze basin laver. The book of Exodus, chapter 30, verse 17 to verse 21. The materials: made entirely of polished bronze from mirrors donated by the women. Extreme valuation: 500,000 to 1.5 million. The tabernacle was a portable sanctuary that God commanded Moses to build while the Israelites wandered in the wilderness. The book of Exodus, chapter 25 to chapter 31, chapter 35 to chapter 40. It served as the dwelling place of God among his people Israel, where he would meet, guide, and dwell with Israel during their journey from Egypt to the Promised Land, the land of Canaan. The tabernacle. Wikipedia. According to the Hebrew Bible, the tabernacle, a residence, dwelling place, Mashkan, also known as the tent of the congregation, also tent of meeting, was the portable, earthly dwelling of God used by the Israelites from the Exodus into the conquest of the land of Canaan. Moses was instructed at Mount Sinai to construct and transport the tabernacle with the Israelites on their journey through the wilderness and their subsequent conquest of the Promised Land, based on 1 Kings 6:1. Biblical literalists hold that after either 480 or 440 years, Solomon's temple in Jerusalem superseded it as God's dwelling place. Timnah Park in southern Israel, about 17 to 20 miles north of Eilat in the Arva Negev desert, features a life-size, detailed replica of the tabernacle, based closely on the biblical specifications given in the book of Exodus, including its structure and sacred furnishings. During the Israelites' journey through the wilderness after the Exodus, God manifested His presence visibly to guide His people in the form of a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. In the book of Exodus, chapter 13, verse 21 to verse 22. Also, chapter 14, verse 19 to verse 20. Pillar of cloud by night, a dense, towering cloud that provided shade and guidance, protecting the Israelites from the harsh desert sun. It served as a visible marker of God's presence and direction. Pillar of fire by night, a flaming column of fire that illuminated the camp and the path ahead, providing light and comfort during the darkness. The tabernacle was divided into two main compartments, reflecting increasing levels of holiness. The holy place, the first section inside the tent, after entering through the curtains of the tabernacle. The furnishings of the holy place: table of showbread, golden menorah, lampstand, the altar of incense. The holy place was where the priest ministered daily, maintaining the light, offering incense, and presenting the bread before God. The Holy of Holies, the innermost chamber, separated by a heavy veil from the holy place. Only the high priest could enter, and only once a year on the Day of Atonement. The furnishings of the Holy of Holies: the Ark of the Covenant, the most sacred item made of acacia wood, overlaid with gold. The Holy of Holies represented the throne room of God, where His glory dwelled, and where atonement and ultimate communication with God occurred. Number 7, tabernacle structure and coverings. The book of Exodus, chapter 26, includes gold overlaid acacia boards, silver bases, sockets, gold bars, fine linen curtains, blue, purple, scarlet, cherubim embroidery, goat hair tent, ram skins dyed red, sea cow badger hides, extreme valuation, silver bases alone, 3 to 6 million, gold overlay and fittings, 20 to 40 million, luxury textiles and rare dyes, Tyrrhenian purple equivalent, 20 to 50 million, Structure total 45 to 95 million. Aaron, the first high priest. Aaron was the brother of Moses. The book of Exodus, chapter 4, verse 14, and was chosen by God to serve as the first high priest of Israel. The book of Exodus, chapter 28, verse 1. As high priest, Aaron acted as the chief mediator between God and the Israelites, offering sacrifices, burning incense, and entering the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement. The book of Leviticus, chapter 16. Only Aaron's male descendants were allowed to serve as priest in the office of high priest. This was restricted to his direct lineage. The book of Exodus, chapter 28, verse 1. Also, the book of Numbers, chapter 3, verse 10. Priests were consecrated through ritual washing, clothed in sacred garments, anointed with oil, and they were offering sacrifices. The book of Exodus, chapter 29, verse 1 to verse 9. His descendants formed the Aaronic priesthood, ensuring continuity of worship and sacrificial ministry for the children of Israel. Number 8. Priestly garments and high priest regalia. The book of Exodus, chapter 28, includes ephod woven with gold threads, breastpiece with 12 precious gemstones, onyx shoulder stones, robe, tunic, turban, sash, gold plate engraved, holy to the Lord, holy to Yahweh. Extreme gemstone assumption, high quality emeralds, sapphires, rubies, diamonds, etc. Extreme valuation, gemstones 20 to 50 million. Gold weaving and artisan textiles 5 to 10 million. Priestly garments total 25 to 60 million. The Aaronic priesthood, mediators of the true God. The Aaronic priesthood, established through Aaron and his descendants, was considered the only legitimate priesthood authorized by God on earth. They were established to serve in the tabernacle and later in the temple. The book of Exodus, chapter 28, verse 1, and the book of Leviticus, chapter 8. These priests alone were permitted to offer sacrifices on behalf of the people, burn incense before the Lord, enter the holy place, and in the case of the high priest, the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement, because the Aaronic priests acted only in the name of the Lord. They were distinguished from all other religious leaders or priests of surrounding nations who served false gods. There, the Levites' authority was derived directly from God's commands and was not based on social status, wealth, or personal choice. The Israelite historian, the Levite historian, Flavius Josephus, from the 1st century CE, records that during their time in Egypt, the children of Israel acquired skills in craftsmanship and artisan work. This is described in his work, Antiquities of the Jews. While in Egypt, the Israelites were immersed in a culture known for advanced construction, metalworking, weaving, and woodworking. They learned practical skills that would later be essential for building the tabernacle, its furnishings, and the temple in Jerusalem. The mastery of craftsmanship was not just practical, but divinely directed. God filled them with skill, intelligence, and knowledge to create sacred objects for worship. The book of Exodus, chapter 31, verse 3. Number 9. Skilled labor and sacred craftsmanship. Assumptions. Extreme, but plausible. Hundreds of master artisans, goldsmiths, jewelers, weavers, embroiderers, woodworkers. 1 to 2 years of work. Museum heritage grade standards. Extreme labor valuation. 50 to 100 million US dollars. When scholars and enthusiasts attempt to estimate the value of all the tabernacle furnishings, priestly garments, and sacred items, some modern calculations place it at roughly 375 million to 500 million US dollars. The Ark of the Covenant, 40 to 75 million. The menorah, 15 to 25 million. The table of showbread, 5 to 10 million. The incense altar, 3 to 6 million. The bronze altar and basin, 1.5 to 4.5 million. The tabernacle structure and coverings, 45 to 95 million. Priestly garments and gemstones, 25 to 60 million. Skilled labor and craftsmanship, 50 to 100 million. Total extreme, 185 to 375 plus million. The sheer extravagance of the materials shows that no expense was spared in worshiping God, emphasizing His holiness and the importance of sacred service. Scholars and enthusiasts try to calculate the modern market value of the tabernacle, its furnishings, and the priestly garments, estimates generally fall between 300 million and 500 million US dollars. Extreme upper bound estimate 300 to 400 plus million in today's market value. After wandering 40 years in the wilderness, the Israelites, under Joshua's leadership, entered and conquered the land of Canaan. The book of Joshua, chapter 1 to chapter 6. This land was strategically located at the crossroads of the ancient Near East, making it a center of trade, commerce, and cultural exchange. The geographical significance of Canaan, positioned between Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Mediterranean. The land of Canaan was a hub of ancient trade routes, including caravan paths for spices, metals, and textiles. By the time the Israelites entered the land of Canaan, they were no longer just a wandering people. They had become a nation equipped materially, technically, and spiritually to have a major impact on the region. The tabernacle and the pillar of cloud by day and the fire by night demonstrated that God himself dwelt among them. The book of Exodus, chapter 25, verse 8. Also, chapter 40, verse 34 to verse 38. Israel's role in establishing the kingdom of heaven on earth. Their mission was not merely political or military dominance, but to manifest God's rule, justice, and holiness on earth.